But Bob Prentice saw an opportunity. He invested his redundancy money and risked his life savings in tourist and party boats, known in the river trade as pleasure boats.
We just had to learn a different industry. The pleasure boats was a thing to us of staying afloat and staying on this river.
Bob now owns a business running 5 pleasure boats. And as a warden at Watermen's Hall, he rubs shoulders with the great and the good.
This is Princess Anne, this is somewhere in the city. This is Princess Alexander, and of course the Queen.
For Bob, life on the Thames is all about keeping it in the family.
This is Jenny on the phone. She's worked here since the start of the company in '86. She thinks she's got the job, but we've got 2 more to interview. And this is Irene, my wife, who comes in occasionally and reads a book. Too many from my family work here. My wife works here. My eldest son, Robbie, works here full-time. My father works here, and indeed does my brother. You're brought up to river life, and I think you decide, I certainly decided that there was nothing else. There wasn't, that was the job. That was what I was going to do, and that was what I wanted to do.
Welcome, and thank you very much all for coming for the draw for the Doggett's Wager 2012.
For Bob Prentice, like all Thames watermen, there are precious, centuries-old traditions. You wouldn't think it, but for these working-class men, the most precious is a sport people usually associate with Eton and Harrow. In 1715, an actor called Thomas Doggett started a rowing contest just for watermen. The Doggett's Coat and Badge. Once they'd completed their apprenticeship, they'd race for nearly 5 miles between London Bridge and Chelsea. The event is the oldest rowing race in the world. And in recent times, one family has dominated it. The Duongs.
Means quite a lot. It's also a great privilege as well, especially with my dad and my family and my cousins and everyone else who's won it. I'm the last one as such who hasn't won it.
Now, what's the basis on which he's drawing first?
I've just selected.
The contestants hope to draw the centre lanes, numbers 3 and 4, which offer the fastest line under London's bridges.
So what a lot of people seem to misunderstand is when you say I've won the Doggett's Coat and Badge, they presume it's the trophy, but what they don't realise is what you're wearing is the prize. This is the Doggett's Coat and Badge, which I won in 1977. It says the gift, the late Mr. Thomas Doggett, and at the moment you'll see my name, John Charles Duong, which of course is me, the winner.
Merlin's dad, John, knows it's not just about the coat. It's about opportunity. As a Doggett's winner, historically, you got the best river jobs and a chance of becoming a royal waterman.
When you think we're basically just working class boys, and to have the opportunity to sit on the back of a royal coach, to go up the Mall, unbelievable. To be part of it was fantastic. And I still look at it now and get it out of the wardrobe. It's fantastic. I wear about 12 times a year still. And hopefully the next time will be when my son, if he does, wins the Doggett's Coat and Badge this year.
Rubbish. The last commercial cargo on the Thames is being ferried through central London. Crewing the tug are men from the Andrews, Prentice and Duong families. Families that have worked this river for hundreds of years.
London Beach, yes. Recovery, Surrey entrance in.
The skipper is John Duong.
It's a very busy stretch. They say when you get between Waterloo and Lambeth, it's one of the busiest stretches in Europe. just because of the different types of boats. You've got pleasure boats, you've got high-speed ribs, you've got commuter service, you've got the commercial tugs like ourselves. We make it look very, very easy, but it's quite dangerous.
It's a fast tidal flow. There's, a 7 or 8 metre difference between high water and low water. And that volume of water rushing in and rushing out twice a day creates eddies and tidal streams.
Once we're going in one direction, it's very hard to stop. If we just stop the boat now, you'd travel another 100 metres before she stopped if we just took her out of gear, just by the momentum. And even when you stop, you've still got the tide underneath if you're going with the tide.
Knowledge of the river, its dangers and how to master them has been passed down through generations.
You're taught by your dad how to do all the different knots. There's a certain knot called a pinnage, which is kind of a last gasp. I'm 7 or 8 years old in a little boat, and my dad teaching me how to do this. And I tried until I perfected it. And once I'd perfected it, he whacked me round the head and said, now don't ever do it.
Further upriver, Merlin Duong is also trying to live up to his family's high expectations. He's so determined to win this year's Doggets wager that he's moved into a dingy flat above a rowing club.
Doggets is, for me, everything at the moment. Weights is usually 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. You've got to be focused. If you don't get the training, then you're not going to win. There is a massive build-up to it, especially on the river. Everyone's asking how your training's going. Everyone's asking you, are you going to win? Are you going to win this year? So it is quite a mental strain. There's always that feel of, disappointment in other people. It's hard, like obviously no one wants to lose. If you're not first, you're last.
Come over a bit. Hold them over. You've got to hold them over, Merlin. You're in the wrong station. Should be where we are.
For Merlin's father, John, Doggets is more than a race. It's a link to the Thames's great past.
1 minute!
Everything is steeped in history and tradition. You come to work in the morning, you drive a tug from Cholton, and you go up through past Greenwich, which is Royal Naval College, which is history. You've got the old Surrey Docks, which was bombed during the war. It was the first dock to ever be built. You go past the Millwall West India Dock, which is now Canary Wharf, a thriving city within itself. You then come round past Wapping, and you're looking at Tower Bridge, Victorian engineering at its best. You've got St Paul's Cathedral, the House of Parliament. We go past Windsor, we go past Hampton Court, you end up at Oxford, you go past Henley. Doesn't matter where we go, in what direction, you've got history.
The river's got a different mood. Every hour, every minute, it's something different. There's something to watch, something to see, something moving, someone you know, someone you don't know, what they're up to. And it's just great.
John's brother, Ken Duong, is the Thames's big fish. A working-class boy from Rotherhithe. He went on to win Doggets, row in 2 Olympics, and serve as Master of Watermen's Hall. Today, he runs a boatyard in the upper reaches of the river.
We were conceived in the womb to be watermen. When I left school, there was nothing else I was ever going to be than a waterman and lighterman.
Ken's life has been shaped by the river, for better and for worse.
The main news this morning is of a disaster on the River Thames in central London. The pleasure boat, the Marchioness, was involved in a collision with another vessel before she sank.
The Marchioness was one of Ken's boats.
I got a phone call about 1 o'clock in the morning to say the Marchioness had sunk. At that time, I remember getting in the car and driving to London, thinking all the people would be standing on the pier, and the boat had sunk. First it really hit me was when they said, we're setting the morgue up and the bodies will be arriving here soon. And I thought, bloody hell, this is far more than what I could even dream of thinking what was happening.
In the darkness, the Marchioness had been struck from behind by the dredger Bow Bell, a vessel 15 times its size.
If an articulated lorry drives down the road and you're driving along in a little smart car and he rides right across the top of you, that's what happened. "51 passengers and crew lost their lives. It was a disaster that shook the nation and devastated the Thames Watermen. Every time you come out the door, there was cameras. My wife, took it very badly. And even now, it's still a very, very sad period of our life. And you find people mention it and you feel the hair at the back of your head go up. And
The Marchioness Tragedy dealt a further shattering blow to the industry of the Thames. Overnight, the Watermen saw a 75% drop in passenger numbers.
It killed the river. It was devastating. And if there's an aeroplane crash, people don't want to get on an aeroplane. If there's a train crashes, they don't want to get on trains. Our record over the years has been really good, very, very good. But it doesn't take that away that accident happened.
The Thames was haunted by the disaster. Passengers did slowly come back to the river, but the damage had been done. The accident eroded the Watermen's standing.
Oh, you mentioned that yesterday, didn't you? Sorry, Mark. Yeah.
Bob Prentice's business survived the downturn following the Marchioness disaster, but Bob faced a personal challenge. Something that goes to the heart of what it means to be a Thames Waterman.
You have children and you can only show them your way. Doesn't mean to say they're going to follow it.
All watermen dream of passing on the family trade to their sons. But for Jamie, Bob's younger son, a lifetime on the river didn't feel like a dream, but a trap.
I've been up on a boat since I was a kid, and I just thought, well, I don't think this is right. I think there's something else out there. My dad actually said to me, well, go on then, son. Go and get some other work. Go and do something. Go and find something different. I just didn't explain to him what I had in mind. I was going to lead a life of crime. It didn't last very long.
Jamie went to prison for armed robbery. When he got out, he'd a change of heart and came onto the river. He started working on the tugs, collecting London's rubbish. But not for long.
We was all at work one day. Jamie's not turned up for work again. Which, I'm not saying it happened every day, but it wasn't really a talking point. It was, oh, Jamie's not here again. Then by mid-morning, you're starting to get the phone calls from elsewhere. Have you heard about Jamie?
I nearly lost my life over there.
During a high-speed police chase, the car Jamie was travelling in lost control.
One of the motorway road cones jammed underneath the car, veering us off through the fence and down into the woodland, hitting a tree about 75 miles an hour. I fractured my skull, placing me into a coma for 22 days.
When you get the phone call at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, your son is in hospital and he's got a serious head injury, it is it's like hitting a brick wall. Especially for the time on the life support machine. You'll have a night and you think, well, I don't want a phone call. Because if I get a phone call, it's the phone call I don't want. And his mother phoned the hospital twice every night. You just have to accept what's coming. You do.
Expectation is rising in London as the Olympics comes to town. The river is centre stage.
This is London's invitation to the world. It's a great, great moment. We're sending out a signal. This is the final furlong to get ourselves ready, and I think we're going to do a fantastic job. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So if you've got your cameras today, you'll get a lovely photograph of Tower Bridge.
Tourists have flocked to the river to enjoy the build-up to London's big summer. But on the Isle of Dogs, 2 Thames watermen are taking to the river for a very different purpose. Bob Prentice is determined to keep his wayward son Jamie on the water.
When they actually got me out of the hospital, let me out, could barely walk, I'd only just come out of the wheelchair. So the left-hand side of my body didn't work at all properly, so like it had to be pushed into gear.
Hold on. No, wait. OK.
Rowing has given Jamie a way back.
I thought if I get him down to the rowing centre and put him on the rowing machine was just a few minutes to start with, and then we built up. And it was after he'd mastered that I took him out in a double scull. Keep hold of the sculls when you get in and out the boat. OK? Push off then. Ready? This one. Go. OK, let me just have it first. OK, lovely. Backstops, nice and light, nice and tidy. Backstops. Are you ready? Row. The training system, the gym work, the boat work, it's all about discipline. And you discipline yourself to do that.
It recovered me. Discipline that I can only say that you would only learn from sculling. I got balance back and mind control. It had the answer.
When Jamie went back to work, the crews of the tugs and his workmates, all of them, were so good and so supportive to him. And they did what the river community do. They looked after him.
I think that's more out of respect for his family than out of respect for Jamie. It wasn't right what Jamie did, and no one could ever say it was right. But for Bob and Irene, you would have backed them.
The summer of 2012 has thrown a spotlight on London and the Thames. With 1,000 boats on the river, the Queen's Jubilee pageant offers the watermen a chance to prove the Thames can be busy and safe once again. Merlin Duong has taken a rare break from rowing training to captain one of the passenger boats in the pageant.
So if something was to go wrong will reflect onto the people who work on the river, even if it's got nothing to do with them. It's like going back to such disasters as the Marchioness and things like that. Anything that happens on the river is publicised worldwide.
With so many boats in the flotilla, experienced watermen are scarce.
In the unlikely event of an emergency where we have to evacuate the vessel, you will be...
Bob Prentice has turned to his son Jamie to skipper one of his vessels for the day.
I'm not sure, Steve. Where to go here, mate? What do you think?
It's a chance for Jamie to live up to his family's name on the river.
She's a lovely boat, but she can be a handful. Sometimes she'll go round on a coin, sometimes she won't. You find out there and then. All I've got to do is make sure I don't jeopardise the safety of any passengers or the boat. What do you reckon, Steve, here or there? Steve? It's not going to go completely to plan. There will be a few minor incidents.
Each boat has to slot perfectly into a tight gap as the 1,000-boat flotilla comes past.
This is England, so we do love to queue.
As the Queen approaches, it's time for Jamie's big moment.
No room for any error at all. Feels better now that we're out of the situation. We can just tick over now and let it take its course.
The flotilla reaches Tower Bridge and the Queen disembarks. But behind, there's a sudden bottleneck.
It's becoming very difficult to hold the boat steady. Not just for us, but for others as well. We're running out of space. If we touch someone, it's not going to be deliberately, it's going to be slight. We're open. Thank you. We've got some steerage and that's what we need.
With the boats moving again, everyone can enjoy the spectacle.
Nothing went wrong, everything went to plan. Everyone enjoyed themselves. Fantastic day.
There was a lot of boats today, quite a lot of pressure to make sure everything went right, and it did.
But for the Thames watermen, the Jubilee is bittersweet.
I think sadly so much of it disappears over years, and it's just turned the clock round and brought it all back and brought it to light. It proves to people what can be done, and the river is still here.
The 60 years of the Queen's reign has seen 60 years of decline on a once bustling river. The men of the Thames lost the docks. They were battered by the Marchioness disaster. And then, in 2007, came the ultimate insult.
All of you have now been admitted to the freedom of the company of this ancient guild.
The 450-year-old tradition of fathers apprenticing their sons into the trade was reduced to pure ceremony. The government enforced a new licence for Thames workers, falling in line with EU regulations. The new licence required not 5 years training on the river, but just 2 years in the classroom. And effectively, it stripped Watermen's Hall of its licensing power.
You don't need a waterman's licence or a lighterman's licence to work on the Thames. All you need is a European boatmaster's licence, which is the same as a driving licence. You don't have to come through the tradition of the river and the companies to be able to achieve that.
For the Andrews, the European standard licence is another betrayal, alongside the death of the docks.
Someone, somewhere, in the upper echelons of the British society had the chance to pick us up and protect us and keep us going. And instead of that, they decided to just bastardise us with the rest of Europe. A little bit of London's history is England's history, a little bit of it's gone. Now you're sitting in a little dingy pub in the middle of Woolwich for a union meeting and there's 40 people, and that is why they've overpowered us.
What's happened to this river and all our papers ain't worth that today.
155. Six, seven.
I want that ticket.
Oh!
At the Surrey Dock Working Men's Club, Colin Andrews and the last of the lightermen are remembering the good old days.
You know what that is? What was his name? The Nazi. Drove about in a German... Well, hold up. Get the life jackets out. So get the life jackets out. I ain't got one, right? Well, there's supposed to be life jackets in that locker. Harry Oliver had 2 on. He wasn't going to drown. Didn't worry about that.
But the mood soon turns bitter.
I don't think you have one Marchioness accident. Now you have people on the river without experience. You'll have 4 Marchioness accidents. That licence was brought in by Henry VIII. All of a sudden, the lighterage started to disappear, and so did the lightermen, and where years ago they were strong, very strong, and could stop people trying to get cheap on the river, we couldn't stop them anymore, and eventually they walked all over us and took our licences away. And it's a sad day.
Unable to rely on regular tug work, Colin's son Burt has decided he has to take a second job.
Work has been dying off ever since I come afloat. Extra work is hard to come by, especially for, you know, there's a sort of 2 sides of the river, which is the work boats and tugboats, or the pleasure industry, and I've just never really been inclined towards the party and tourist industry, which is where most of the extra work on the river is. It's just not what my own imagery, in my own head, my own ideal of what the river is the old black and white days, the smog of London, and that's what attracted me to it, that rolling your sleeves up and getting stuck in. If what I enjoyed doing on it couldn't be done, I'd go.
And they can be winning, and we don't want to see things like that. But you can't stop it. It happens. We've had favourites go down here, and that rank outsiders have won the race, and that's what makes it such an interesting race. It's a race of watermanship as well. You're looking at all the bridges. You're looking at all the tide sets. Look at the water at the moment. It's a bit bubbly here. You know, I've seen this really white horses in these races.
Despite Merlin's intense training, the strain is showing in the Duong family.
Oh, talk about nerves. Terrible night's sleep. Worse than him, most probably. I was told to shut up this morning, and I said, "How are you?" And he said, "Don't talk to me," so I'm fine. So go and enjoy yourself. That was his last words.
Hundreds of watermen and their families follow the action aboard pleasure boats.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Doggett. You've got lane number 3, Merlin Duong. That's a great Duong family, and it is a great family. Nathaniel Bryce, another very smooth, tall sculler. Stuart Coleman, actually, an unbelievably quick sculler. Dan Alloway. It's the biggest of all the five competitors. And over light blue, Ben McCann. He's the smallest of them all.
Darling, Dan, just wait there, please. Nathan, just hold it. You ready? Are you ready to go?
The race is up and it's on. Exactly what you thought. Merlin Duong had an absolute flyer. He's already taken a clear length away. In second place is Dan Alloway. Merlin Duong is already going through number 2 at Vauxhall Bridge. So you're talking 750 metres in front of Stuart. Now Nathaniel making a massive error. He's come from number 2 arch, which he should be going in, and going through centre arch. Absolutely schoolboy error. Sadly now, a lack of experience and training showing on Ben McCann. Feisty, really nice fella. Merlin Duong, absolutely scolded a dream. He's made no mistakes. This is a nice, comfortable win.
Merlin becomes the 5th one to win the Doggett's coat and badge.
That was sweet. This tastes so nice. Oh, I'm so pleased.
Ben McCann trails home last.
You've got to remember, if you win the Doggett's coat and badge, it's forever. That uniform, every time you put it on, you're a Doggett's winner. The girls love it.
Well, that's the main thing.
That's the main thing, yeah.
For another year, while Doggett's lasts, the Duongs are kings of the Thames.
That's gone for, coming up to 300 years. We can't let this go. So many things have gone in this country. We can't let this go.
But one lighterman isn't at this year's Doggett's. For Burt Andrews, there's another reason to keep driving his taxi.
So, these are our first scans of 12 weeks. Don't know if it's a little boy or girl yet. It's something that's always been a possibility, something in the future for me, and all of a sudden it's happened.
Despite all the Andrews setbacks on the river, Burt still dreams of carrying on the family's 400-year bond with the Thames.
As long as there's enough trade to provide the employment, and I wouldn't force a child of mine into a career that could crumble under their feet. But if it's looking good, then I'll definitely encourage it. As soon as he's old enough to toddle, he'll be following me to work. He can carry on the footsteps of his father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and all those before.
While Burt dreams of the future, for his dad Colin, life on the Thames is finished. This is the entrance to the old Surrey docks, once the biggest timber dock in the world. When Colin first started working here, there were several thousand watermen and lightermen on the Thames. Now, there are fewer than 600. All that remains for Colin are the memories of the glory days.
Terry Libbury, Medhurst, Johnny Ledger's down there, Harry Stokes. Some of these names go back to the 50s. there would be big gatherings of lightermen standing around and looking after their barges and so forth, and lots of them scratched their names in this wall. Mickey Cox up there, now that would have been nose height. He was a big fella. Lots of them were good friends.
David Suchet, George Cole and Geraldine James roll out the comedy next here on London Live in Blot on the Landscape.